everybody, DeathsStalker here. So we just finished watching the MotoGP race from Misano. That's part of Italy. And I just watched the third MotoGP race in a row now where it came down to the last lap. And it was an absolutely awesome race. Now, this year, Misano, they've had problems with grip the last couple of years, so they decided long before the race to microblast the surface to try to sort of like chew up the asphalt a little bit so that it'll actually provide some more grip for the tires. And then they had a 2-day test session for the MotoGP bikes like 2 weeks ago, so they could actually see how it worked. And the results were not encouraging. The track pretty much had no grip, especially after the microblasting had removed all the rubber. Now, Misano was actually near the seaside, so a lot of the sand from the beach gets blown up and ends up on the track. And so they have a grip problem like they have in Qatar and the UAE, where they have the sand from the desert getting on the asphalt and just creating a slippery surface. And the guys doing the test, they found there was a lot of slipping and sliding. They weren't doing good laps, so it wasn't looking encouraging. Now, surprisingly, Yamaha bought a great big truckload of parts to try, and they did. And I guess they found something. They found some bits and pieces they could put on the bike to make it work a little bit. Now, as far as we know right now, that they made it work at Misano. We'll have to wait till they go to the next race, which is in Aragon, to see if it's an actual improvement or just a improvement at this one track. And Maverick Vinales actually got the pole, an absolutely spectacular pole. Fabio Quartararo was actually doing really well, but the shocking part was Paulo Spargo was on the front row with the KTM, which was, KTM definitely could use the boost, because they've been a top 15 bike most of the season. Like, they're not really progressing as well as they'd like to be. And for probably 30 seconds, Spargo actually had the pole until Maverick came by with just a stunning lap. Now, Marc ended up on the second row, and he ended up on the second row because him and Valentino were actually messing around with each other, deciding who was going to lead who and who was going to go fast. And when they finally both decided to go for it because they were running out of time, they got in each other's way, and there was a bit of a conflict, but not like Marc waved a hand at Valentino, and Valentino just sort of shrugged at him. It's like, nerd fight sort of thing. And they got called into the steward's office for to explain themselves, and judging by the fact there wasn't any sanction given against them, they just went like, they probably just told them to behave and sent them on their way. So we come to the race, and the interesting thing about this race was that the Yamahas were all at the front. Marc started in the second row, and quickly was working his way through, but you had Maverick in the front, Fabio in second, Franco Morbidelli was right behind him, and then and Valentino Rossi was sort of there too, but he got caught up behind Spargo, who was actually just dropping off the pace, because he just, the KTM is good for one lap, but the problem is I can't set several laps. And they just had a really good run. Then Maverick actually had a big slide in the front end and had to back off, and Fabio was by him, and then Marc very quickly came by him, and Maverick had to sort of just sit back and just sort of coast along, hoping his bike would actually start working again. You get that with tires. Sometimes bikes work good under a full fuel load. Mostly bikes work better under a light fuel load, and I think the Yamaha's more of the later. So the end result was that Marc quickly got around Maverick and proceeded to tail him, and he was like all over him. He was probably 2/10, maybe 3/10 of a second behind him for the entire race. He was like Fabio's shadow, and Fabio was doing a spectacular job staying in front. He wasn't putting the foot wrong. He was just riding his race, riding it very well. And what happened with like, Marc didn't have to win the race. His championship lead, Ducati, was just nowhere to be found this race. They just couldn't get their bikes to work, and Dovi managed to finish, I think it was like 7th at the end of the race, and that was, you know, with a couple crashes, like Alex Rins had crashed out. And so I don't know what happened to Ducati. They admitted that the package they provided Dovi was just not there, and he did the best he could with what he had. So I think Ducati still got some technical issues with their bikes with low grip tracks. But on the last lap, Marc passed Fabio into the first turn. A couple of corners later, Fabio passed him back. Another corner, Marc passed him and made it a block pass, so Fabio couldn't get by, and Fabio actually had a front end slide that he almost crashed. And I think he just sort of decided, I think I'll stick for second. And he was absolutely thrilled, because one of his dreams was the battle with Marc Marquez for a race, and 27 laps, for 26 laps he was better, and then Marc turned it on at the end to win. Marc, of course, was thrilled. He's now 93 points ahead of Dovi in the championship, and they're going to Jerez, I think it is, no, Aragon. They're going to Aragon for the next race, which is one of Marc's favorite tracks, because it's mostly left-hand turns. And actually the Ducati should be pretty good at that track too, because they tend to do well there as well. So the nice thing is they don't get a break this weekend. Actually, when this video is coming live, there's probably the press conference is getting ready for the start of the next race that's going to take place in Spain. So hopefully we'll get another good race. And then after that, they're on to what they call the flyaways. Thailand, Japan, Australia, and Malaysia. Anyways, I'm going to leave links in here as well. MotoGP actually released the last lap battle between Marc and Fabio on YouTube, so I'll put a link to that video here. They also put the little clash with Rossi on there as well, and they're after the flag show. So I'll put a link to all three of them down there. And in all honesty, if you're really into this, follow the MotoGP YouTube channel, because they upload all kinds of videos all the time. So, DeathsStalker.